TravelPlex Smart Tips. 10 things you need to know before your trip. So that's number 2. We're going to move forward to number 3. Multi-airline navigating. So this is important to know too. Number 1, read the fine print before budget flying. Make sure you are aware of whatever the rules are concerning that with budget flying. Budget flying can save you a ton of money, but it can also bring a ton of headaches. And particularly when things don't go as planned. So for instance, if you're traveling with a budget airliner, such as Spirit or Frontier, you need to know in advance what their requirements are or what their weight requirements and limitations are for their baggage. Because number 1, what seems like a good deal can be a horrible deal if you are not one who can travel light. Budget flying works out fabulous for people who know how to travel with just a purse and maybe a small little carry-on. If this is not you, then you do not want to do budget flying. What you want to do is you want to go on ahead and spend the extra to purchase that ticket that comes with the luggage you know you can comfortably travel with. It's important to note that with budget flying that you do not have the same carry-on limits that you do with standard fares. So you need to check the weight limits, and these things can change without notice. So you want to consistently check that so you can make sure you're compliant. Because if you are caught and you're not compliant, then your budget just got expanded. Unless you were planning on just leaving your stuff at the airport. So definitely read the fine print. Make sure you know what else is required. In other words, you need to know if it's a non-refundable ticket. That's important to know. If it's refundable but not by money but maybe by voucher, you need to know that as well. You need to know how much of a headache will it be to communicate or to work with them as it relates to when they make changes. So with budget flying, know that there's always a possibility that the flight can change, that there could be not only delays but changes in the flight. Meaning anytime, even if it's months before your flight leaves, they might have to change the schedule. It might take you an hour longer to get there now, or they might leave an hour later, or anything could happen. So this becomes a problem because your connecting flight is a separate flight. So that is the con of budget flying, is that if things don't work as you purchased it, like if you buy a ticket and that ticket can't be honored because for whatever reason they had to change their plans on their end, that can inadvertently affect any of your other flights. One of the major problems is that this can cost you even more, because even though you can get your money back when they make those sort of changes, well, you're getting your money back for a budgeted ticket. So if that ticket was $100, and because now they made some changes that impacts your entire flight, you're having to buy that same ticket at a later time, which is closer to the date you're leaving, which means now we have a conflict because, as you know, the longer that you have to wait, or the longer you wait to buy a ticket, the more expensive it is. So now what was a budget flight at $100 a month ago, a month later, you get your $100 back, but that same flight with the other carriers might be $200 now. So now your budget just got expanded. But it may work out in the wash to be about the same, because again, with budget flying, you have to pay for your bags, and bags can be $100. Check bags can be $100. A carry-on can be $100. So, with that being stated, you want to make sure that you weigh that when making that decision. Also, by the way, very important, make sure that you pack a scale. A scale is going to be your best friend. Now you can get the lightest scale you can possibly get. You can get an electronic one if you want to, but remember it's going to require batteries. And these are not things that are easy to necessarily come by if you're in a different country that operates on a different system of electricity and so forth. So, and since batteries are a limit for travel, then you want to keep that in mind. So if you can get you a good sturdy manual quality um, weight scale, then that will save you a ton, because you can check before you get to the airport. May not be as big of a deal for you as you're leaving to go where you're going, but it can be a major deal on your way coming back, because hey, on your way going you can always take anything extra out and put it in your car, but on your way coming back you can't do that. So you need to know before you board that plane or before you get to the airport how you need to maneuver or navigate through your things so that you can properly balance things out between your carry-on and your check bags. Number two, one-way flights, making connections and rebooking, what you need to know. Okay, so with one-way flights, of course, that means if you do have to pick a bag, you only have to pay one way. Um, and again, as we stated before, that means these are independent flights. So you would have to check in again as though you just came to the airport at whatever your next location is if you're traveling with that kind of flight. Um, it's not as big of a deal with us having one-way flights, going from here to there and then from where we are to where our next stop, because it still would be whatever connections you have is going to be the same. As far as making connections, always, always, always make sure that you give yourself plenty of time. And only you know what you can handle and navigate, or what you're comfortable with, and if you are a person who, you don't operate well on the fly. And when I say on the fly, I mean like if you're thrown into a situation and you have to be able to kind of quickly get your bearings, if this is something that exhausts or overwhelms you, then you would want to not budget fly, but get yourself a ticket with one airline that's been around for a while. So not any new kids on the block, because that's taking a risk. So you're going to want to look at, if you talk about American Airlines, you're going to talk about United Airlines, Delta, American Airlines, these companies who've been around for a long time and that can facilitate you getting anywhere in the world. Even if you don't fly the whole leg with them, it's going to be one of their partners. So you're going to have the ability to have that same cohesiveness when it comes to whatever country you go to, knowing that there's going to be someone there who knows how to meet your needs. In other words, they're going to be someone there who's going to speak English, of course, who's going to be able to help you navigate to where you need to go, and is going to help you facilitate from where to where. You're going to have that kind of accessibility. So you're going to want to fly with someone of that caliber. Okay, so making connections and rebooking. So with rebooking, um, you want to make sure that if you're unfortunately in this situation where a flight has changed and it is going to conflict with another flight that you have, you want to make sure you, number one, check with that airline to see if they have a flight that is compatible that you can take without missing your other flights. Keeping in mind how much time you're going to need to self-transfer and to collect your belongings. You have to anticipate all of that. So you want to give yourself at least 3 hours if your next flight from the one that has changed is going to take you to your international flight. So with that being stated, you want to make sure that whatever flight you get, if the flight leaves at 10 a.m., you need to have a flight that's going to get you arriving at the location you're going to go to by 7 a.m. That gives you 3 hours in order to navigate, because you have to anticipate is even if the plane gets there exactly on time, it's going to be at least another 15, 20, maybe even 30 minutes before you actually are able to disembark that plane. Keeping that in mind, if you do decide to fly by chance with an airline and you only have um, 15 no, I'm sorry, you only have an hour or something like that, something, a short period of time to do what you have to do, and you have the ability to choose your seat. If you don't have the ability to choose your seat, in other words, for free, if you don't have the ability to choose your seat for free, this would be a time where you might want to pay for a seat. And the reason why is because it's going to be very important that you are able to be as close to the front of that plane so that you can be one of the first people to get off as possible. This is not as big of a deal on some international flights, because in several countries we've been to, you have people who are able to get off on the front and back of the plane. So you're not losing a lot of time. But most flights, especially when you're talking about the big planes we're going to be getting on, you're going to be coming out of one area. You're not going to have two areas where people in the back and the front are coming out almost simultaneously, which means that your strategically being seated is going to be very important. And that would mean all three, four, however many people in your party needs to be in a position where they can easily and quickly navigate through. Number three, important apps to download for staying on top of flight schedules and gate changes. So the apps that you would need to make sure you download is for the airlines, or the airliners you are using. So if you're using Turkish Airline, then you want to download their app. This will help you to stay in the loop even if you're not in your country. So how does this benefit you? If you are in, let's say, Istanbul, and you have a layover there on your flight to Israel. Um, if this is your situation, then if you have a Turkish airline app, download it on your phone, you'll be able to still get access to any changes quickly. You know, of course, you can always go online and Google it, especially if you have Wi-Fi accessibility at the airport. That is something you can do. But if you already have a Turkish app, you have at least your confirmation number to check in, even if you do not decide to join, their website, because most airlines is free for you to join them, to start an account, and to be able to rack up free miles by getting your tickets through them, which albeit it won't really amount to much if you're using a whole lot of different airlines and you don't consistently stay with one. It won't amount to a whole bunch of miles for you. But at the very least, if you do that, you will have access to knowing what their flights are. If, for instance, you had to change a flight because your flight was delayed and you need to get to wherever you're going so that you can make your connecting flights, or because your flight's delayed, now you have to look for another connecting flight, then what you can do is you'd be able to quickly go into the app and find what other flights they have for your time frame without having to go through, now I have to Google it, I got to find the actual web address. Now I go to the web address, I have to navigate through the web address on a small screen, because the mobile screen is not it's easy to navigate as a computer or laptop computer or tablet screen would be, because you're not going to have access to the full website. You're going to have a shortened version of it. So now you have to go through that, whereas you don't have to do any of that. If you have a delay, they are already aware you have a delay. Most times, even if you do not have an account with them, if you have your confirmation number, and you'll probably need something like your name, you can still sign in to see where you are. So if it says, your flight has been delayed, you have to choose a, new flight. They're going to be able to quickly get you to, here are the flights that's more compatible, and you can pick one. That navigating capability is going to be a lot more expedient to you than going through the process of actually going to Google it on a website and then trying to download everything. Not to mention, it's going to be a lot faster, because even with Wi-Fi in many places, you may not get the same speed at every airport. So being able to navigate that through an app will probably function a lot faster than going through an actual web browser that has to go through different, server, and usually takes more time for downloading information. So that's one of the apps you're going to want to have. One of the other apps you're going to want to have is you're going to want to have a Move It, Moovit, and at the end I'm going to give you a helpful link so you can get all that. But one of the other apps you're going to want to have is something like Rome to Rio, Waves, Google Maps. These are things you want to have so that you can navigate when you get to your destination. Number 4, keeping track of confirmation codes for all your airlines. Again, everyone will receive, if you're traveling through the Travelplex, an itinerary that has this information on one sheet of paper for you. It can be so cumbersome and time consuming. And that is one thing that you don't get a lot of when you talk about navigating through an airport, is a lot of patience for, security representatives to wait for you to find your ticket number or whatever it is you got to have. So, if they require more than just your passport and you got to produce an actual scan, a QR code, and you're going thumbing through several different sheets that you have, that can be so cumbersome. So you definitely want to get an actual ticket. But if you have your 6-digit confirmation code, you can easily go to, again, like I said, either on the app for your airline and get that QR code quickly to give them, versus going to Turkish Airline on a website and trying to do this. I'm telling you, I've done it so many times. You will thank yourself. And remember, you can always delete the app when you get back and you no longer need it. So it doesn't have to continuously, take up space on your phone, but definitely while you're needing it, you want to have it. And it's best, if possible, for you to download something like that while you're in your home country, because getting on the web from other countries is not as simple as you think. And even if you do, a lot of times there could be a fee associated with getting faster speeds. So the more you have to download, the more taxing, the more that's required, the slower the process will be. Versus if you have an app, it only has to, because most of the time they're going to have browsing options. So if you're, they'll say, okay, well, not for videos or not for this, but, we give you this much browsing time or etc. This is going to be your most convenient way of being able to keep track of things, is by going to your itinerary sheet that you get, being able to get your confirmation code so that you can get your QR code if you need to. If you're going to check in, if you're going to do a self check-in for your bags, or just to check in when you get to the airport, which I don't advise. I advise that you check in. They give you 24 hours before your flight to check in while you're in the comfort of your home. That's the time, if you can. Now, of course, on your way back, you won't be able to do this. So on your way back, you want to make sure you take advantage of that 24-hour time on your phone. You want to capture the screen when they give you the QR code, so that all you have to do is show them your phone with the QR code. Make sure you capture the QR code though, not just the confirmation numbers, because that's not what they're needing in order to check you in. But these are things that you're going to want to have access to. And having it all and having that confirmation code is like the key to getting everything else that you need in a very short way, because your ticket number is an insanely long number. And even though they'll allow you to use your ticket number or your confirmation code, that 6 alphanumeric number is going to be so much more convenient to you than that. I think it could be 12 to 22 numbers for a ticket number. So you don't want to have to be remembering that or having to put that in everywhere you go. Number 5, know before you go cost for seat selections, baggage, food, etc. So now, right after you get your ticket, this is the time to begin looking into the cost for your seats. If you are tall and if you've never traveled long distance, I'm not talking about anyone can sit through an hour or two of being cramped in between two people on a plane. But when you're talking, and even though on the bigger planes you do have more leg room, but it's not that much more leg room. So even with that, being cramped in the middle, if you are a tall individual, is going to be extremely uncomfortable for you. So you will want to get you an aisle seat if you are tall. Again, the only other thing you want to make sure of is where that location is going to be based on whether or not you got a self-transfer and you have a short layover. If you know you got to catch another flight, you want to try to get that seat as close to the front as possible. Now, the possibility of you being able to do that will depend on where you are in the chain of command of seats that's accessible and available by the time you book your flight and by the time you choose to select your seat. So that's why it's very important that you be very proactive on the seat thing. If seats are very important to you, after you book your flight, your next stop needs to be to go onto that website for the airline, use that 6-digit code that you're going to get, and to purchase your seat. Be mindful that when you purchase your seat, so be sure you're going. Well, I say be sure you're going. Yes, be sure you're going before you purchase your seats, because even if you are able, you have to say, okay, I can't use this airline. I can't use this airline because they don't have a compatible flight for me. Well, you may have to go through a whole nother process to get that money back for that seat that you purchased. So once you are clear, this is what you're going to get. Of course, you can always use your insurance that you're going to purchase just for your seat to say, hey, we had to change flights and the company wouldn't give me this. I'm writing to get that reimbursed. But who wants to go through that process and that headache? But as long as you're sure you're going, be as sure as you can possibly be, because that's non-refundable. And that's with any of them. I don't care if it's United or Delta or whoever. If you had to purchase a seat, that seat is yours. And you will not get that money back. Now, if they have to change where you sit, they don't guarantee that you'll get that particular seat. They just guarantee basically it will be an aisle seat for sure if they have to change your seat. So for instance, they say, hey, you picked seat number 12, and you picked D for the aisle seat, and you did this, and what happened was they had to change your seat for some reason. They're going to change you to maybe 15, and it's going to be maybe it's going to be aisle seat C instead of D. Okay. The biggest thing is that you will be on an aisle seat. Now, this does not guarantee you will sit with your loved ones unless you buy them a seat as well. So when you're making your seat selection, think about that. And also you want to buy it early because the seat cost will increase, or it can increase. I'm not going to say it will necessarily. Some of them won't do that, depending on your airline. But in case the airline you're flying does increase the price as you get closer to the date, then you want to go on ahead and lock in your seat selection. And then there comes a point where you can't really pick. And the closer you get, the less of an option that is. Now, if you're tall and if you don't have any disabilities, you if you're talking about domestic flights, it's going to be only an hour or two. I would save that $20 or $30 that they're going to charge you for a seat. And if you can bear it, just bear it, because when you get to your next spot, you're going to be able to get enough walking in to get that knee back in place. And save that money when you're not talking about a 17-hour flight or a 10-hour flight or 12-hour flight. That's when you're going to need that $30 aisle seat. And I'm just throwing out $30. It could be more or less than that. But the point is, you're going to need an aisle seat. And the same is true when you start talking about traveling outside the country. So you want to look at how long is the flight going to be to determine whether or not you really need to purchase that ticket. Or you're going to risk possibly not getting an aisle seat. So let's go. So now we talk about baggage. Same thing with baggage. Baggage prices increase as the time gets closer to your departure. So that being the case, you want to buy your seats up front. That's going to be the cheapest if it doesn't change and you don't lose anything. But if it does, then you can stand to lose more money. So you want to purchase those bags as soon as you can as well. If you know you're not going to have enough luggage allowance. Food. Very rarely when you're going overseas are you going to find an airline. Now, there are some budget. There was one that actually went out of business that we went, and it was the cheapest ever, but you did not get any free food. And I will let that location go. That airline, I will let that go nameless. Now, it's one thing if you're flying from New Orleans to Costa Rica, which is maybe about a 2-hour flight or something like that, to not get anything to eat. It's a whole nother story when now you're going to be flying for 10 hours to Iceland and you're not going to get anything to eat unless you pay for it. So there are a few airlines, not many, but there are a few airlines where you will not get a meal. So that being the case, obviously there's several ways you can save money that way. One is bring your food with you, because even though you have limited luggage that you usually on those type of airlines are going to be able to carry on, they won't stop you from bringing food on the plane. But the food's only going to last but so long, and so you're going to want to bring snacks, something that's packaged as well, because you're talking about 10 hours. So you're not going to have a refrigerator to put your cold cuts in or your sandwiches in. So your best bet is to get something that will, travel well. Peanut butter jelly sandwiches, that'd be good for maybe the first few hours. It'll last. Maybe just a peanut butter sandwich will last you the whole trip, or multiple peanut butter sandwiches. But once you put the jelly on there, that's something that's supposed to be refrigerated. So you just want to be careful what you choose. But again, that's only when you're budget flying. Now, if you got you a ticket, even if it's a ticket with places like Turkish Airlines, which is now requiring you to pay for your seats. They used to come with it, but they're still not requiring you to pay for things like your bags. You get at least 2 bags that you can carry. You're talking about overseas, and you do get at least the meals are free. You're not going to charge you extra for the meals. Now, if you want specialty drinks, you will have to pay unless you have one of those upgraded seats, in which case you've already paid for it. Because if you're spending $2,000 or $3,000 to sit in business class or luxury class, then you've already bought unlimited drinks and everything else.